that many of us use. It's called the do-do formula. And it has to do with that concept of when somebody says, hey, what do you do? And the first do is when you talk about a problem or a wound that a lot of people have, and ideally, if you can align that wound with something that they might be experiencing. So if you're talking to somebody who is overweight, okay, it's very uncomfortable when you point the finger at them and say, boy, you could use a little weight loss in your life. That doesn't tend to work. How many of you have fear of offending somebody? Okay? If you try to get somebody, the chances are you're going to have a higher probability of offending them. Okay? If you're trying to get them. If you take what we call the third-party approach, which is where you're not addressing the issue at them, you're addressing it more in a global way or at yourself, then they will be more attracted. They will be more open to listen to you. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Let me explain what I mean. So you start by identifying the wound, the problem, and you start with a problem that a lot of people, hopefully you can align with something that they will have a connection with them. Especially if you had a chance to get to know them and ask them some questions, like I said earlier, then you kind of have an idea of what their hot buttons are. So do you know how so many people, especially baby boomers like us, are concerned with feeling good and looking good and living longer without disease? And most of them have tried just about every diet under the sun only to be frustrated. They'll usually go, uh-huh. And you're actually kind of watching that body language. You give a chance to pause so you can check in with them and get eye contact and see if they're following with you. So that's the first do. Do you know how there's a huge problem out there that a lot of people are suffering from? And you can adjust that to the needs. If it was a working mom, you know, and you say, you know how a lot of moms are so busy taking care of the house, taking care of the family, they don't have time for themselves? Uh-huh. Right? If it's a busy health professional, the lawyer, the attorney guy. You know how so many people with their career, the demands of their time, they're trying to, you know, travel, they've got the kids, they're trying to run the kids around at home, is just squeezing some time for themselves if they're lucky. And what suffers? Their health. Uh-huh. You're trying to get them engaged. You're reeling them in. Every little step, it's a little bit more, a little bit more. Then your second do is what I do. What I do is I'm a certified health coach who works with people like you, busy professionals, who are interested in creating a healthy, balanced life so they can increase their energy, stay at a healthy weight, and reduce their risk of preventable disease. And then you stop. Because what are you wanting them to say?
How do you do that?
Tell me more. How do you do that? Now, this is the part where most people want to go right into presentation mode. Well, we got this 501 program, we did it, and we started it, in the first 3 days you get it, and then you get into the fat burning state, and then we'll teach you how to do it. No, this is not the time for a presentation. This is the time for you to tell your story.
Nice.
This is the time when you say, well, you know what? What I did was, I worked with a health coach, and she supported me, and I went through this system called the Habits of Health, where I learned how to eat better, I learned how to control my stress, and you know what? I lost 50 pounds in 10 weeks, and I've kept it off for 10 years. Now, do I have their attention?
Yes.
Have I presented to them? No. That's an important distinction. I haven't presented to them. I've wet their whistle. I've talked about what's important to both of us. I've now found that there's some interest in them, and based on their body language, now if they're just kind of like looking at their clock and they're not all that interested, and they're not really tracking with me, then it's going to change my step. But let's say that they're showing some interest.